that the League of Nations failed in order to ensure the peace. So the maintaining of peace was the primary objective. There are 54 member states. This particular council में जो 54 member states है, that membership is based upon the regional quota. Roughly 10% contribution came from India. So the largest troop contributor historically was India. India played a very important role, whether it is the Korean Peninsular War or other major situations where Indian forces have been deployed. Now, when we are sitting in 21st century, no representation to African countries is also a major issue as far as any organization which is at the global level is concerned. That we cannot fight with the today's challenges with the outdated structure without the comprehensive reform at the UN. It faces the crisis of confidence. There is a veto restraint proposed by India. That veto should be used only in the exceptional cases जहां पर the peace and security is going to get disturbed. Hello everyone, I am Vishal Salsekar, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic from the perspective of international relations, which is regarding the initiative, which is the United Nations at the rate 80. So just imagine a scenario that there is a building which is hosting roughly 193 families. Now the families are not of similar economic power, but basically they were having one flat each. Now there were 5 families which are residing at the top floor of that particular building, and 80 years before this particular date, these families were comparatively wealthy. They were having more resources and more power with them, and that's why they held these 5 flats and they were responsible for any major decision that this particular building is going to take. Now, there is a fire alarm that is there in this particular building. Now, that fire alarm can be rung only when these 5 countries are jointly going to operate this particular fire alarm. Now, previously in last 3, 4, 5, or we can say roughly 7 or 8 decades, this fire alarm worked pretty well. They have ensured that there should not be major escalations with respect to the affairs of the building. But now when we are sitting at roughly the 8th decade of this particular building, now there are certain issues in this building. And now whenever there is fire alarm that is getting rung, now these countries are not responding in a coordinated manner. And when we are talking about these particular flats, or we are talking about these particular 5 prominent countries which are representing the significant power at the global stage, we can compare this building to the present day geopolitics, where these 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council are not coordinating in proper manner. That is leading to the major escalation, like there is the fire-like scenario in that particular building. So what does this particular story tells us? That if there are certain responsible countries that are provided with the power in order to jointly and in a coordinated manner operate in order to preserve that particular building, or these 5 countries with respect to the global scenario, the responsibility is very, very high. And 80 years before this particular date, when the responsibility was being granted, these countries represented comparatively better economic situation, better political standing, and they were the victors of the World War II. But now the scenario have got completely changed, where there were rise of multiple countries. When you talk about economy, when you talk about polity, when you talk about geostrategy, there has been rise of the many countries, including India, which are in the need for reform and which want their representation at the global fora. So that's what is the need for the initiative like UN 80, which is talking about the reform for this particular 21st century that is representing the present day order. So in this entire discussion, we will unpack regarding what exactly is the United Nations, why it was created. Then we will also talk about what purpose it had served since history, right? And then we are also going to talk about what this particular initiative is all about and why there was need, and how India is standing right now at the global juncture promoting the initiative for the reform like the United Nations at the rate of 80. So that's why this topic, even from the UPSC examination perspective, is going to be very, very important for the upcoming prelims as well as the mains examination. And for the general viewers also, this is going to be a very informative discussion where you can understand how the geopolitics is functioning right now. So talking about the United Nation and how it was born. So when World War II was happening, the countries were thinking that why the escalation led to these kind of scenarios where the World War II has ignited in 1939. And then eventually country got this realization that the post World War I framework, which was in the form of League of Nations that was created after World War I, that to some extent failed in order to perform its task, in order to bring the country on the forum and also to enforce certain directive on those particular countries in order to get the things done by country. That's why in order to ensure the cooperation between countries and further escalation in the form of, let's say, World War III or IV should not take place, that's why there was formation of the organization like United Nations. Now, as the name suggests, United Nations means it is a collective group right now representing 193 member states. Now, how this was formed? Basically, when the World War II was already going on, there were allied powers and there were Axis powers. Now, the allied powers the prominent power, including the United States and including the United Kingdom, they came together in 1941 and they signed an Atlantic Charter where they have decided that what kind of world order we expect after the World War II. So when the world is going to be free from this particular World War II, what type of world we want. So that's why they have signed the Atlantic Charter. There was cooperation in the manner the countries are going to cooperate, the forum is going to form, right? So that all things were discussed in this particular Atlantic Charter. Now after this Atlantic Charter, in the next year, there were other countries, including the USSR and including China, and along with the other allied nations that came together and they signed a declaration for the United Nations. Now, it's not like that United Nation as an organization was formed, but these were representing the nations that are united by the common cause, and that's why they have signed a declaration for the United Nations. And for the first time in the entire discussions, the term United Nations got emerged in 1942 between the allied powers. Now the war was going on. By 1944 till the end of 1944, roughly it was clear that in the Europe, the war is now going to get concluded and the theater of Asia is only remaining theater. So the major powers of Europe that were there at that point of time, the United States, United Kingdom and USSR, they came together in 1945 February and they held the Yalta Conference where the kind of world that they have aspired for from the Atlantic Charter, they are now going to realize, and in that particular manner, what kind of organization is going to get formed, what will be the assembly, what will be the aspect or the forum for the security related things. All these things were discussed in the Yalta Conference, and that particular conference ka discussion was ultimately resulted in the form of San Francisco Conference of 1945 only. And in this particular conference, there were 50 countries that came together and they have signed the declaration and the charter for United Nations. Right now they have signed. But on 24th of October 1945, ultimately this United Nations came into existence with its 6 principal organs. So this is what is the evolution and the story behind the formation of United Nations. Now talking about what was the purpose why this particular organization was formed. So in the World War II, we have seen there were certain things that were lacking. For example, first, that the League of Nations failed in order to ensure the peace. So the maintaining of peace was the primary objective. Then another thing is because we have seen the atrocities that were being committed by the Hitler and the other forces in the World War II. So that's why there was a need to ensure and promote the human rights. So that's what is also very, very important from the perspective of the organization that is now getting formed. And lastly is to foster cooperation and ensuring the economic development. So with all these agenda, there was formation of the United Nations. These were the 3 prominent aspects that had to be taken into consideration by the United Nations, right? Now, talking about the principal organs as we have discussed, so there are prominent 6 principal organs that were formed along with the United Nations. So, There is General Assembly. So compare it with the modern day parliament. So this is the parliament like the parliament of the United Nations, where all the 193 member states have one vote each. They are coming together, they are sitting, they are deliberating on the important issues of the global level. Then they are meeting, having the meeting yearly basis pay in the September or at any other point of time. If there is a needed, the special sessions are also going to be conducted. Now they are also passing the resolution. They are also responsible for passing the budget for the United Nations. So this is the assembly which is responsible even for the major appointments as far as the United Nations organs are concerned. So that's why this is equitable to the parliament of the modern day. Talking about the Security Council, now this is the only organ of the United Nations which is having actual teeth to bite. What does this mean? That means the organization was formed, the United Nations was formed with the objective to ensure the peace and security of the world. So this is the organ of United Nations which is responsible in order to maintain the peace and order in the world, and also in order to ensure the security. So maintaining peace and security is the objective. Now how that is going to be ensured? If there is any diverging or divergence from the side of any country, if there are major issues going to be caused by them, so there are permanent 5 members. Along with that, there are certain non-permanent members. Presently, the number of non-permanent members is 10. So they compose the United Nations Security Council. Whenever there are major issues which are hampering the peace and security of the globe, this is the organization that has to play a very, very important role. And initially in the beginning, when we have talked about the story of the building hosting 193 families, this is the representation of the United Nations, which is right now having multiple issues. Talking about the Economic and the Social Council, there are 54 member states. This particular council में जो 54 member states है, that membership is based upon the regional quota. So there are total 5 regions in which the entire world has been divided, which includes the Africa, which includes the Asia Pacific, which includes the Eastern Europe, which includes the Latin America and the Caribbean state, and lastly the Western European and the other countries which are remaining. So the Economic and Social Council is important in order to ensure and promote the economic and the social security at the global level. Along with that, the things like the peace, security, economy, all these things are there. Then International Court of Justice, as the name suggests, it is the world court which is sitting in The Hague, which is also known as the Peace Palace. This is in order to settle the dispute between countries and also to go for the better, just world, right? Next is the Secretariat. Now compare this with the bureaucracy. So this is the bureaucracy of the United Nations, where the officials from different countries, the permanent representative from different countries are sitting in this particular Secretariat office, and this is being headed by the Secretary General. Lastly is the Trusteeship Council, which is right now not functioning. Since 1994, when the last trust that got independence, this particular council does not functioning now because there is no such mandate that is available with this council. So the objective of this council was to ensure that those which are the trust which are available with this particular council, that should get independence and the self-governance, right? So this is the organ. Now you are seeing all the organs, but this is standing out organ, as I have suggested already, that this is the organ which is having actual teeth to bite because of one such power where the countries which are the permanent 5 have the veto. That means any resolution, if these countries find that is not good for the global security or the peace, in that case they can put their veto and that resolution ends there. That's why this is the organization or organ which is having actual teeth to bite. Now, talking about that, yes, this particular building or this particular organ, which is the United Nations, has till this particular point of time have worked well, and that we can say based upon the majority of the aspects, not like 100%, but in the majority of the aspect, this organization was useful in order to settle the dispute, in order to resolve the conflict, in order to ensure the peace, security, ensuring the human rights, right? So that can be assessed through multiple stories that we can divide into these particular header. Now, when we talk about the peacekeeping, there are United Nations peacekeeping forces that were enacted from 1948 onwards in order to ensure the peace and security across the globe, and these are responsible in order to maintain and observe that particular peace. So there are peacekeeping forces deployed at different places. The sanction is being done by the United Nations Security Council. Then the deployment related funds, personals, all these things were done by the United Nations General Assembly. And then there is a Department of the Peacekeeping Operations, which looks after the nitty-gritties of these peacekeeping missions. Now, there were more than 17 missions that were there, and these missions ensured that whatever ceasefire has been signed between different countries, these are acting as the police forces to observe that peace. These are not going as the offensive forces to fight the war, right? There were more than 2 million personals that were being deployed, and when we talk about the contribution from the side of India, roughly 10% contribution came from India. So the largest troop contributor historically was India. India played a very important role, whether it is the Korean Peninsular War or other major situations where Indian forces have been deployed. The next is about the development and the global goal. So this is to ensure peace, which is the one such agenda of UN. This is to ensure the economic development and ensuring the basic whatever economic framework that has to be ensured after World War II. So there were evolution of the developmental goal also. For example, there has been the adoption of the sustainable development goal, means what kind of world we are offering to the future generation. Those particular situations are not same at that point of time when the World War II was concluded, and right now when we are facing the issues like cyber security, we are facing the issues like artificial intelligence, inclusivity, climate change. All these scenarios have changed. That's why the sustainable development goal incorporated all these things, from the poverty to gender equality to health, education, blue economy, even including urbanization and conflict resolutions. All these things are part of the sustainable development goal. Apart from that, with respect to the recent issues like the environmental issues, there was formation of the United Nations Environment Program. Then there is the UN Framework Convention on the Climate Change, and that ultimately resulted into the signing of the Paris Agreement in 2015, which is regarding reduction of the greenhouse gas emission to a certain level. By 2 degrees Celsius हमें maintain करना है कि global temperature should not rise, and preferably we should try or strive for the 1.5 degree Celsius. So this is the Paris Agreement, which is one such milestone activity. Talking about the another major important aspect that United Nations has taken in order to preserve the human rights. So since the very beginning, the objective was to ensure and protection of the human rights. So Universal Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948 was the milestone event that led to the development of the basics of the human rights, whether it is political, whether it is social, whether it is economic, whether it is cultural. In all these senses, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, along with the other conventions that had helped in order to preserve the human rights. Then United Nations Human Rights Council, that is also a very important organ in order to provide the resolution of the conflict, preservation of the human rights across the globe. Talking about the health and nutrition, because for the holistic development, health and nutrition is also very important. So there are specialized organs like the WHO, which has provided the vaccines recently in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic also. We have seen the role of these particular organizations in ensuring the vaccine diplomacy. So 3 million plus lives annually are being saved, because many such countries where the vaccines and the drugs are not affordable, and this is the organ which is supporting, right? Talking about the World Food Program, which is helping roughly 100 million plus people on an annual basis, providing the food at free of cost or at the affordable rates. Talking about the last thing, which is the humanitarian actions. So roughly 139 million people were assisted and protected by 2024. So this is a basic idea regarding that it is not that all is bad in this organ. But right now, if I ask you that whatever values that you were having at your childhood, whatever the way of communication that you had at the childhood, whatever was the circumstances that there were at the childhood, all these things are not same. The power wala aspect has changed. The economic situation might have been improved. A lot of other things have changed. The technology has improved, right? So all this time and space is not the same. Yes or no? So in that particular context, don't you think so? Everything is relative. that changes with the time and space. That's why an organization which was formed 80 years before this date has also need to take into consideration the time and space, and when it was formed, what was the need that to be served, and right now what are the emerging challenges which are posing the threat to the international security and the issues like, let's say, the rise of the national extreme sovereignty, right? So all these things have to be taken into consideration while we are talking about the reforms. Now, talking about other aspects that why reforms are needed. Firstly, as we have talked about, that there are 5 permanent members in the United Nations Security Council and 10 non-permanent members. Now, 5 permanent members have been fixed since the formation of this organization, and there has not been any expansion. Now, many such powers like France, UK, that have declined, and there is substantial rise of other powers, including Japan, including India, including Germany. Are they getting representation in the United Nations Security Council? The answer is no. That's why there is a need to reform this council in order to make it legitimate from the 21st century's objective perspective. Talking about other countries, for example, African countries, no representation. Now, when we are sitting in 21st century, no representation to African countries is also a major issue as far as any organization which is at the global level is concerned. Apart from that, the countries are utilizing veto for their own benefit. The majority of the conflict where the global powers are involved, the veto has been utilized in order to pursue their own national interest and their own national politics rather than the ensuring the common good for all. So again, recall the story where there is a fire in the building and they are allowing the basement and the first floor to get burned because they are sitting at the 6th floor. They are not realizing this thing, that eventually that fire will also come to upstairs and that will lead up to the 6th floor also. So in that situations, the veto issue is also one such contentious issue. Talking about the new global challenges, there is emergence of cyber security. That's why the framework also need to incorporate cyber security, climate change. There is rise of the greenhouse gases emission. There is rise of the pollution and many other things that is there, right? Apart from that, AI governance. So though there is a slow recognition at the side of the United Nations where there is a pact for future that is talking about the things like the artificial intelligence also, but there is a need to fast tracking the process with respect to that because this is taking place at a very fast pace, and making AI inclusive, making AI beneficial for the larger set of countries is also very, very important. Talking about the financial strain, there is also issue with respect to the financial aspects because the fund availability is mainly depending upon the contribution from the side of the countries voluntarily. So from the country's side or from the side of different organization, majority of the funding comes from the voluntary contribution, roughly 80%. And then the countries which are comparatively better economic powers, they have historically contributed well. So a few countries jinpe United Nations ka funding is dependent, and that's what is the major issue with respect to the United Nations. Talking about the mandate overload and inefficiency. So many such mandates, many such resolutions have been passed since the formation of United Nations, and there are more than 40,000 resolutions. And they were not being reviewed, and for the similar matter, multiple resolutions are there. For example, protecting the communities in the armed conflict or between inter-country conflict, whether it is for women, it is separate resolution, child, separate resolution, minorities, separate resolution. Don't you think so? That can be clubbed under one header. So that's what is the issue, and that's why there is inefficiency also. A lot of resource have been wasted over this different type of resolution, and that's what is very, very important to understand. Talking about the credibility issues, because see, if there is an organization formed 80 years before that and that has not taken into consideration the present day challenges and that has not represented itself to the present day dynamics, then obviously this organization is going to face the credibility crisis. Apart from that, only 5 countries having the substantial power, and that particular powers are being utilized for their own vested interest. Vetoes can be utilized at any point of time, right? And that's why there is selective enforcement. The Ukraine, Gaza Strip, Yemen, Syria, all these theaters where the United Nations have not played the substantial role that it could have played otherwise, right? And could have prevented the major disasters in those particular regions. Talking about the limited success in achieving the goal. So we are here referring to the objective and the mandates that have been taken by the United Nations, specifically talking about the SDGs. Very few countries are taking it very, very seriously. India has ensured its progress on SDG, but then only there is 35% roughly SDGs which are on track. That means we can achieve to some extent, right? So these are the things. That's why we need the reform as far as the United Nations is concerned. Now, talking about the main agenda, that what is that United Nations @80 initiative and why we are right now talking about this. So the context is already clear to you. So what is the main agenda with respect to the United Nations @80? So there are certain things, for example, reaffirming the multilateralism. That means it's not the world which is dominant by a few power. It is the world where there are multiple countries having substantial power. That's why there is reaffirming of the multilateralism. Very, very important that not only 5 countries can decide the future for all. Talking about enhancing operational effectiveness, because there are already multiple resolutions. We have seen more than 40,000 resolution and mandate that are also overlapping, and that's why that is taking resources, that is taking a lot of time from the United Nations member countries के जो representative हैं, and that is leading to inefficiency. That's why 80 years completion is providing us the avenue and opportunity to review all these things and remove all these things which are obsolete by now or that need to be clubbed with certain other things. Ensuring the accountability, because when we are providing some more power to certain countries, there is a need to ensure the accountability. When the UNSC is blocking certain things, what is the role of UNGA? Is there any overriding power with UNGA? Right now the answer is no. Right? So that is also one such issue. Adapting the modern realities, that means the time and space has changed, and that's why there is a need to adapt the modern realities, talking about the reform with respect to the main organ, which is the Security Council. And also talking about the financial sustainability, because aisa to nahi hai ki every country is giving whatever United Nations wants, right? So basically in that case, there is a limited money, limited resources that has to be utilized in a judicious way. That's why the financial sustainability is also very, very important. So what United Nations has provided as a part of the UN80 initiative, so it has talked about the cluster-based approach, where the issue has to be divided into the regional theaters, the department organized into the thematic issue based upon the theme. For example, if there is a conflict prone zone and if there are different type of communities, that communities can be clubbed together because the situation is roughly similar for different communities. The resolution that you are going to provide for women, child, minorities and different other communities also going to be similar to some extent. That's why they can be clubbed under the cluster based approach. Talking about the regional hubs, because sometimes the issue with respect to inefficiency is being observed at the side of United Nations. That's why there is a need to create the regional hubs, jahan par if you are going to provide these type of regional hubs at the region specific place pe, here there will not be implementation of one shoe fit for all approach. What you are going to do, this theater is having different problem, this is having different problem, this is having different problem. That's why you can go for the theater specific approach and you can deploy the personnel which is very much aware regarding that entire theater ka dynamics, and that's what is going to be helped with the help of regional hubs. Talking about the performance metrics, so for anything we are talking about organization, we are talking about the private corporations, everywhere the performance is going to be very important. The resources have to be agile, the resources have to be efficient, the obsolete things has to go away, and there is an incorporation of the new and the efficient thing, and that's why the performance metrics is also going to play a very important role, whether it is the mandates, whether it is resolution, whether it is organs, or whether it is the duplicating bodies. All these things have to be ensured. So there, whatever key performance indicators that are there with respect to this United Nations ka entire structure, that is need to be ensured with the feedback and monitoring the progress on that. And lastly, talking about whatever resolutions are there, it's not about only 5 top floor countries. It is about all the countries or all the member states which are part of that. There should be broader consultation. There should be consensus that has to be established regarding the reform within the UN structure. It is not only about UNSC. It is talking about the broader sense. Certain reforms were already proposed previously in 2024. There was summit for the future, because right now, whatever future challenges that the future generation is going to encounter, and right now we have seen certain instances, right? So what type of future we are seeing and what will be the challenges and what may be the resolution regarding that. So Pact for the Future talks about the sustainable development with respect to the future generation. So whatever we are inheriting right now, we should be giving that world which is livable to the future generation. So whether it is climate change, whether it is cyber security, all these things are part of that. Talking about the Global Digital Compact, because we are talking about the digital world also. It's not about just the the national border, it is also about the digital world, which is a lot interconnected. So there should be inclusivity, there should be prosperity, there should be benefit to all the countries that should be available. So when we are talking about artificial intelligence or cyber security, that should be inclusive to all the country irrespective of their wealth. Lastly, talking about the declaration for the future generations. So when we are taking any decision making at the end of the United Nations, the future generation has to be taken into consideration. That should be behind our mind framework in order to propose the resolution. That's why the need for the future generation has to be taken into consideration by the member state. Now, talking about the India stand, because see, India as one of the major stakeholder, one of the founding member of the United Nations, is very, very important country, is a major contender as far as the UNSC permanent membership is concerned. We have the population, we have the economic stats, we have the trading hubs, we have the market available, we are the knowledge economy that we are becoming right now. So in all these sense, India is representing all the parameters which is important for that. Now we are even doing the defense collaboration. We are the leading country on the sustainable development goal. We are focusing upon the agreements like the climate change. We are proposing the artificial intelligence related regulations, right? So as highlighted by the Prime Minister of India, that we cannot fight with the today's challenges with the outdated structure without the comprehensive reform at the UN. It faces the crisis of confidence. The countries are not going to take it very, very seriously. And when a structure gets obsolete, if you are not going to reform that, if there is no proper maintenance, do not, if you are not believing right now, that do not think it is non-shakeable. It can be tomorrow destroyed also. So that's also need to be taken into consideration by the world community, that if there will not be reform, it will become outdated, it will become obsolete, and then there will be no purpose served by this organ. So what India wants, a more representative, efficient, and along with that democratic multilateral order. So it talks about the UNSC expansion. So India wants the UNSC expansion. India is getting represented by the G4 nation state, which includes Brazil also along with India. There is Japan and there is Germany, which is proposing for the reform with respect to the UNSC seat. There is a veto restraint proposed by India, that veto should be used only in the exceptional cases jahan par the peace and security is going to get disturbed. Otherwise, for your vested interest, there should not be provision of the veto. And otherwise, if veto is there, there should be overriding power provided to the UNGA, that by some specific resolution, UNGA can overturn that. Financial decolonization, because obviously the country-based decolonization is already being done, but the financially still the countries are mainly dependent upon the dollar. The United States is controlling a lot amount of the economy. The institutions are being under their control, right? So that's why the financial decolonization has to be there. Whether you talk about World Bank, whether you talk about IMF, or whether you talk about the major architecture, it is the United States that gives the threat. In the name of the America First, they are giving the threat that the world order belongs to us. We are the leading country. That's why there is a need to reform this particular ideology also. Sovereignty respecting AI governance. So right now in the context of AI, there is no such thing like the national borders, right? The data is fluid. So in that case, that should be respecting the sovereignty, the country's data, countries, whatever stats are there, that should be with the country, and there should be only permission based things that are allowed. That should be allowed. Stronger General Assembly, because ultimately this is the parliament. If the parliament is going to get weak, the executive can be the true monarch in the actual sense, right? That's why the United Nations General Assembly has to be in the position to control the entire structure, because that is the organ which is representative, not the United Nations Security Council. Also, there should be more actionable resolution. So what is the goal? The goal is to match the 21st century challenges with the 21st century framework. It can't be dealt with the 20th century framework, and that too was signed in the mid of the 20th century. That's why when the structure got changed, there is a need to ensure comparatively better world. Now, as prominently highlighted by the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, right? There is the need is great and the goal is clear. An even stronger and more effective United Nations that deliver for people and is tuned to the 21st century. So at all the levels of the United Nations, there is a consciousness that is developed, and that's why the initiative at the 80th year of the formation of United Nations, and when we are sitting in the month of November, there has to be a proper conscious, because This is the year where there should be some substantial reform that should be taking place regarding the United Nations. And as being highlighted by our Honorable Prime Minister again, that we can't deal with the modern day challenges with the obsolete structure. If that structure is not representative, then it is going to be end. So that's why there is a timely reform needed with respect to the United Nations organ, and that is what is being proposed by the United Nations at the rate 80 to make United Nations more agile, more responsible, more ensuring the better availability of the human rights, peace, security from the present perspective, right? So this is regarding the topic of the United Nations at the rate of 80 and what India is actually expecting from its side and what India's demands are and how India can play a very important role in all these particular regard. So I hope that this topic which we have discussed is clear to you, and if there are any doubts, feel free to post. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.